Welcome to Sports Biz Career Exploration Camp 2020, the first of its kind. I am co-founder Patrick Stack. I want to make sure I also recognize my additional co-founder, Sam. You want to say hello?
Hey, everybody. We are so excited to get started. Thank you all.
And then Jeff.
Morning, everyone. Welcome.
Can't tell you how excited we are and appreciative that you all decided to spend time out of your summer. I know it's been a longer summer than you wanted, but still your summer to learn, to grow, and develop, and really to take the first step in your career. So thank you so much for joining us. Kind of a couple of housekeeping items. This is the first session of 3 lab sessions each day. So this is 11 a.m. session. At 2 p.m., you will be able to pick which session you want to go to based upon the individual career pathways. So we've got 6 career pathways: esports, sports marketing, sports media, sports agency, sports for good, and sports stats and analytics. So basically identify which one of those pathways is of most interest to you. Make sure you visit that link, and it's the same process. You're going to have to register via that Zoom link so you can attend those individual sessions. And then we're closing out the day at 4 p.m. with a conversation regarding diversity. And I know Mike's going to get into that. He just recently wrote a book on the topic with Jim Rooney. It's going to lead a conversation about the kind of the creation and the evolution of the Rooney role, and discussion the importance of diversity in building winning organizations. So really excited to have an amazing first day. And speaking of amazing first day, I want to introduce our panelists for this initial 11 a.m. panel. I'm going to go alphabetically as we make initial introductions. So Brandon Cullen is first. Brandon, if you would just kind of introduce what you're currently doing today and talk about your current job and MADabolic, and then we'll go around the session, do the same thing. And then after that, I'll come back. We'll jump into kind of your past life before the current day. Brandon Cullen from MADabolic.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Brandon Cullen. I co-founded a company named MADabolic. We are a strength-driven interval training concept, and we started franchising the model right out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And we have 12 locations in operation. We have 13 in development, and we hope to add another couple hundred in the next 4 to 5 years. So exciting times.
Thank you, Brandon. M comes before N, so Metcalf, you're up. Mike Metcalf.
Hey, everyone. Mike Metcalf. I am a 15-year veteran pit crew person. We still kind of don't know what to call ourselves, but I've been in racing 15 years. First, probably third of that was just a developmental pit crew guy. The middle was as a pretty, I would say that was probably more my competitive years. And then the last third has been more on the coaching and training side, even though I still am pitting. So the last few years, I've, written a book, 12secondculturebook.com, and that pretty much just tells the story when Sean Pete and I, the guy I write with, we got to Ganassi Racing about 7 years ago, and our pit crews weren't very good. And over time in our culture, we were able to be very competitive without budget, without talent, without resources, all the things that people say that you need. And so we went back to try to figure out how do we tell that story. And we realized that our core tenets were diversity, efficiency, culture, and kindness. So we started a company, diversity, efficiency, culture, kind of DEC leadership. And so when I'm not racing or at home with my 2 kids, I'm out kind of doing leadership talks and working with teams about how to be more efficient and how to win with kindness.
Awesome, Mike. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Martin.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Martin Nance. I'm currently at Gatorade. I've been at Gatorade now for the last 8 years, all in marketing. The role I sit in now is Director of Athlete Activation. So I lead a field kind of hybrid sales and marketing team across the country, a team of about 50 reps across the country that go into high schools, colleges, really help us manage our relationship on the ground with elite athletes and great partners across the country. So it's been good. It's a fun brand, a brand that's always evolving, growing, and kind of pushing the envelope. So from a marketing perspective, I've just really enjoyed it and grown a lot, but excited to be here, excited to have the conversation today. We appreciate everyone stepping in and spending some time with us today.
Thank you, guys. Great job. You're 1 for 1. You're batting 1,000. I can use different sports analogies. I also want to make sure that for those that are watching, we're up to 300 participants total. So Christian Murray is our locker room leader. For those of you that want to submit some questions for the group, you can do so via the chat. Every 7 or 10 minutes, guys, I'm going to kick it to Christian. He's going to bring one of those questions to the table, okay? We want to make this as interactive as possible. I just want to make sure that the attendees recognize that. So you guys have summarized what you do, right? The title of the panel is From Going Pro to Being a Professional, and I think that's where I'd like to isolate kind of the next question. And Martin, we'll start with you. So you're a professional athlete. Many of our students, that's the dream. When we talk about sports biz camps, the initial reaction from high school students is, I get to go play sports. And most students, high school students, including myself, I would imagine many people on the participant sheet wanted to play professionally. You had the ability to do that. And what we want to do is talk a lot about what you've done since your professional road. But can you walk us through essentially your playing career, where it started in college, and then where it ultimately ended up in the professional ranks?
Yeah, happy to do it. So, like most of us, I started playing sports really young and just jumped around. I played everything, basketball, baseball, soccer. I ran track. Every few months I was jumping in and getting excited about a new sport. And so really into high school, I did that, bounced around, played a bunch of different sports. And once I got to high school, I really started to get serious about football. Really didn't start playing until kind of late into middle school, and really high school is when I got serious about football. And from there, I really just fell in love with getting better, improving at the game, and like seeing other athletes. I would watch guys like Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, like these great players. And I would just try to pick little things that they did and see if I could incorporate it into my game. And in doing that, I developed skills, but I realized, hey, like the athleticism, I really have to kind of put in the hard work on that side to make this thing kind of take another step forward. And so that's what I did as kind of the later years within high school. For me, I really focused on training hard and running track to help develop me as a receiver. I played receiver and defensive back in high school. And I'd say the turning point for me was just recognizing that, like, doing the work that all of my other teammates was doing was not going to get me to the unique places and dreams that I had, right? To go on and play in college or eventually play as a professional athlete. So I just, again, kind of fell in love with doing that extra work, like running hills when no one was looking, or, going out and running routes on my own when everyone else was like out hanging out, kicking it, partying. Like I was the one like on the field grinding late summer nights, doing the extra work. And so I just kind of embraced that as part of my journey, as part of my process. And it turned into an opportunity to go play college football. I played with, actually with Ben Roethlisberger at Miami, Ohio. We had some fun years there. I majored in accounting because again, I just wanted to keep getting better. I didn't know if that was going to result in an NFL career or just, really help me be a great college football player. And fortunately, it did. I had an opportunity to keep playing. I played a couple years with the Vikings in Minnesota with players like Adrian Peterson and some great players up there. And then I went over to Pittsburgh and reunited with Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Tomlin and some relationships I had, and played a couple years in Pittsburgh where I won a Super Bowl, was a part of a championship team there, and really just had a great experience as the professional athlete. Had some injuries like so many athletes, got banged up and decided, hey, you know what, let me transition on. I've won a Super Bowl, I've got a ring, and, got a chance to meet President Obama in the White House. So it was an awesome journey for me, but also kind of set the stage to make a transition on to kind of a career after football. So that's how I would kind of sum it up in a nutshell. There's many stories kind of thread in there that I could go in, but I would say that's kind of the quick summary of my career as ultimately a professional athlete and a football player.
Anytime you can get a Super Bowl ring, I think you're doing okay. You're in pretty good company there.
Yeah, no, it was an awesome experience. Something that you kind of you think about as a younger player, but so many things have to fall in place for that to happen. Whether it's health and being on the right team at the right time and making the right plays in the right moments. But definitely a really cool experience.
Thanks for sharing, Martin. Mike, you've been a high-performing athlete in 2 different sports. Can you walk us through your football career and then that transition to the Pitt team?
Well, I would say that maybe one sport. I don't know that I was high performing in football or I'd still be playing. But
you played in college, though, right?
Yeah, I wasn't as talented as Martin, but I played in Appalachian State. I got to football late. I was more of a basketball guy, but 5'9" basketball guys don't make it very far. So played football. I started in the 10th grade. I think my story is just kind of one of grit and taking opportunity when it presented itself. Walked on to Carson Newman College in Johnson City or Jefferson City, Tennessee. I had no real scholarship offers, even with being one of the best running backs in the state of North Carolina. I was just kind of young. I tore my shoulder up when I was a junior, and I think that's kind of the summer where you do a lot of those exposure, those camps where, people kind of get to see you and scout you. And so I missed out on all that. Had a great senior year, no offers, walked on at a D2 school, thought I was going to quit, transferred to Appalachian State, kept playing. And then tore my ACL twice there, right at times where I thought that I was going to be able to really kind of break through. But for whatever reason, I never gave up. And even after graduating, everybody's training for pro day. I'm like, I'm gonna train too. Why not? Because I just didn't feel like I had gotten the use out of my body. Like I had spent so much time rehabbing. I was like, I know that there's something that I'm supposed to do with this body of mine, right? And so I kept training, and I ended up working out with a guy named Ben Cook, who was at UNC Chapel Hill basketball. He ended up getting hired he moved to Charlotte to train Julius Peppers, Steve Smith, some of those guys. And then he ended up picking up a couple of race car drivers, one of them named Casey Kane, who worked for a guy named Ray Evernham. And Ray was the original Rainbow Warriors back with Jeff Gordon. Ray was the first guy to say, let's put athletes on pit crews. And so when Ray, he was new to this team, Casey Kane was new to him. Casey knew Ben. Ben said, hey, you're doing this pro day stuff. And then I had a workout in Indianapolis for some like Arena League and NFL Europe teams. I wasn't big time like Mr. Nance here, but I kept going. And they said, we want to hire you, Mike. I had never watched a race. I didn't know anything about it. And a story that a lot of people know, I'm going to share with you guys, and I think I shared with Christian, is that they said they wanted to hire me in August, and then January rolls around and they still hadn't hired me. And I was at that point where I was either going to go play in some Italian football league or go to some indoor league in St. Louis and make $100 a week. And I was like, let me just give this a shot. So I just showed up and went to work. I showed up and I was like, all right, when do I start? Where do I start? they were like, is anybody expecting Mike today? And nope. And I was like, I know you're not expecting me, but you said you want to do this. I'm here. Let's do it. And that was 15 years ago, man. I started in the parts room. They needed help there. I didn't know anything about parts, nothing about cars. A month later, I'm at the Daytona 500. Never been to a race before. They're asking me to do stuff. And the only thing that I think that worked for me from kind of going pro was that I just stayed humble. I never had an attitude of I belong here. It was always I'm just here to learn and help. And you can be mad at me for not knowing, but you're never going to be mad at me for my work ethic or for how I show up and how I treat people. And I knew that if I did a good job, then there might be other people like Christian that would come along that look like me that they would give a chance to. And so it was just kind of I thank God every day that those doors open. And, that's my story.
And you kind of just showed up to work. If you want a job, just show up.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy, right?
Congratulations. Thank you for sharing. Brandon, last but not least, kind of help us understand and walk us through your professional career. I'm also going to make sure that I share after the fact. Brandon did a really great TED Talks. So we're going to share Mike's book, and we're going to make sure we share Brandon's TED Talk as well, which is a great story of his background.
Yeah, so I was a classic Canadian kid. I grew up just outside of Toronto, and hockey was what we did. I mean, everybody knows that. So what a lot of American-born players or even people don't know is you're kind of given this weird choice to make at a very young age. So at 16 or 17 years old, if you're playing well enough, you could be drafted into the Canadian Hockey League or my division, the Ontario Hockey League. But you have to make a decision at that point if you're drafted. If you decide to play in this league, you forfeit your NCAA eligibility at 17 years old. And it's kind of like, it's a really weird place to be because, you know, your parents, you're thinking, I'm going to the NHL. This is the fast track to get there. It's kind of, I don't agree with putting that, looking back on it, I don't agree with that choice, putting it on the parents at that time. But for whatever reason, that's the path that I took. You could arguably, these would be the best leagues in the world for 17 to 21-year-olds. With that said, all of these players probably could have had scholarships. But for whatever reason, that's what made sense to me. I grinded it through these leagues, had a pretty good career that allowed me to get an invite to the New York Rangers training camp. And at that point, they were tied to the Charlotte Checkers. So if you can think of AAA, AA, the Checkers were AA, Hartford Wolfpack were AAA, and the New York Rangers were the big guys. So it's so funny listening to like Martin and Mike speak here, because I'm almost like going through my own career of like, right when I thought I was going to get to that next league, boom, blow out your knee. Then you grind your way back, boom, shoulder surgery, out for a season. And I hear these same themes kind of coming up. And I hope this becomes a theme of today, because it's that ability to get back up and keep clawing forward to stay relevant, or to just prove to yourself you can do it. You know, I had an unfortunate end to my hockey career at the very height of my playing days. My first week that I signed an NHL contract, I also had a career-ending concussion and never played again. So, you know, I'm sure this will drip into a lot of this talk today, but I made it and it ended in that same week. And I had to just kind of pivot and figure out what to do, but it wasn't very different from coming back from that knee injury, coming back from that shoulder injury. It was just getting back up and getting moving forward again. It was just grinding and clawing my way back. So, you know, I look back on hockey now, I think I was an okay player. I think I'm better at what I do today, but I think hockey taught me a lot, or sports taught me a lot about what is valued in business and from people. So I love my story. I'm okay with it.
Thanks for sharing, Brandon. You guys have awesome stories. I really appreciate it. This is the time we want to kick it to Christian. There's a lot of great questions in the Q&A in the chat. I'm sorry, guys, there's 325 of you. We can't answer 325 questions in this session, but we did want to address a couple right now. Maybe Christian, if you want to bring one to the floor from a participant.
And this is a question towards anybody. It's from Dontrell Jones in our audience. So the question is, and this is a question for anybody, what advice would you have for an athlete going into college looking to network in the sports industry?
I can jump in and at least kick it off. I'd say, you know, as an athlete, you actually are really well positioned. I would say as an athlete, but also just as a student in general, you're really well positioned to get access to people that in regular life are very difficult to get a hold of, right? And As a student athlete, you can reach out to alumni of your school or people who work in an industry that you're interested in, and you can let them know, hey, I'm a student. I would love to just pick your brain for 15 minutes, or if I'm in the area where you live, can we grab coffee? And I think that people are really open to that, especially when it's a student that's reaching out. We've all been there. We've all kind of found ourselves in that phase of life where you're trying to figure out, hey, what's next? And I'm a student, but still really excited about the things that are out in front of me. And so people are open to having those conversations, setting aside that time. So you have that window of life as a student or student athlete to take advantage of that. And I would really encourage people to use LinkedIn, use whether it's social media, to connect with people that you'd love to just learn from. And you never know where that can kind of snowball or go. And one thing that I think is helpful is, as you wrap up those conversations, ask that person, hey, is there someone else that you would encourage me to connect with, or that you'd be willing to connect me with, so that, again, that snowball continues. But great question. I would just encourage you to really be proactive, especially in that phase of kind of student athlete life, because people are really open and willing to connect with you. And that's rare. As a working professional, if I reach out to someone, they immediately think I want something from them, or I'm trying to sell them something. And it actually is more difficult oftentimes to get that conversation than it would be for someone who's an athlete, or definitely a student athlete.
Yeah, I think if I could address that, and then we'll kind of take another question. Good question, Dontrell. To Martin's point, so I'll put it out there. We're not paying Brandon, Mike, and Martin to be here. They're here because they want to help. And they're not the only 3 people in the world that want to help you. There's a lot of people that have been in shoes similar to yours, that someone helped them and they want to give it back. So one thing we try to communicate to a lot of our students in college is use your status as a student as an advantage as opposed to a liability. It's your job to learn, and there's people that want to help teach you, as evidenced by these folks. They're all very, very busy people. Brandon's traveling the country, opening up new locations. Mike's just wrote a book, and Martin is getting everything ready for fall sports, and obviously works a lot with Gatorade. And they all have families and other things going on, but they're here because they want to help. So people will help you if you ask, and especially as a student, and demonstrate that curiosity, which is what you're doing as part of this camp. And you're going to find that people will, if you raise their hand, they'll answer. Speaking of raising hands and answering, Brandon, I wanted to come back to you. You started to kind of allude to it a little bit. I thought you made a really interesting comment, which was like, you think you're better as a professional than you were as a pro athlete. One of the questions that came through, and I want to put this to the entire group, is what did playing competitive sports teach you that you apply today?
You want me to jump on that, Pat?
Yeah. Would you?
I think real simple. You can never be too early. You really can't be overdressed. And it's kind of funny. Martin said something early that I used, and I've used in many different kind of talks, but I've found that almost all of my progress has been made when nobody's been watching. It was in athletics. It was endless hours in the weight room. It was on the track by yourself. It was a lonely pursuit, a selfish pursuit, and I don't mean selfish in a bad way. I mean wanting to see what you could accomplish. In business, it's really no different. It's seminars, it's continuing to learn, it's education, it's certifications, it's being on calls like this. It's this relentless pursuit to get better. At your sport, at business, at being a father. It's just constantly wanting to grow, I think, is the easiest way to say it. So yeah, I think sports teach you that very, very early. And like we joked about earlier, Patrick, I still am at the doctor's office 30 minutes before every single appointment. I take what I'm wearing very seriously. So if I worked at Bank of America, I would try to wear that wardrobe perfectly. Yeah, and grind it out behind the scenes when no one's looking.
So Mike, same question. I mean, you are obviously were an athlete, and also like you talk about a lot of the principles between competitive sports and leadership. What else would you help these high school kids understand as far as what they're learning while they're competing and how they can translate that into a career?
So a lot of the core of what is 12-second culture started when Sean and I got asked to speak at the NFL Combine in 2017, and I'm not a public speaker, and initially turned it down. I'm like, now I'm not getting in front of all those people. I don't, I'm horrified. But one of the things we always say is that fortune favors the brave, right? And so you have to be courageous when opportunities present themselves. And so we talk. I thought it was horrible. We got a huge applause, and it kind of helped give me a little bit of the win to like, man, maybe this is something that I should do. And so, but interestingly enough, every team was represented: strength and conditioning, human performance, director of operations. Every team was there. 400 people in this room. There were 4 teams that would not let us leave. They downloaded Sean and I for everything they could. I would let you guess the 4 and you would get them: Patriots, Chiefs, Saints, and 49ers. Does that sound weird? Exactly right. Pittsburgh, those guys had to leave and go do something. So we'll give them a benefit of the doubt. And then Green Bay, it was 5 Green Bay. But I was like, it's very interesting that those are the people that win all the time. And I was like, what is it about people that win all the time? It's not just, Big Ben and Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes on the field. It's the whole organization. It's everybody chipping in. It's a winning mentality and a successful drive that everyone in the organization has. And so, as a high schooler going into college, going into the work world, you can't ever think that your role, regardless of where it is small. It's important. It's important. You affect so much more than you know. And so, I just think it's important for you to understand this concept that I matter. And so as you develop, kind of like to what Brandon said, it's kind of lonely, but it's not so much about what you do. It's about who you are and learning who you are. What am I good at? What are my skills? What are my gifts? What are my talents? Honing in on that stuff. And then as you develop that, the opportunities will present themselves.
Martin, you want to address the same kind of question?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that comes to mind as I hear that question about, skills as a professional athlete and how that helps me today, it's really echoing what Brandon and Mike said, knowing who you are. Mike Tomlin, my head coach in Pittsburgh, he would always say, the standard is the standard. And it took me a while to understand what that even meant. The standard is the standard. He would say that over and over. And it eventually sank in, and I understood it as meaning the standard and kind of the expectation that we have for our team, for our organization, for you as professional football players. It is set. We know what it is. We're going to raise the bar and expect everyone to perform and operate and carry themselves at this standard, and that doesn't change. It doesn't change whether, I remember very vividly, we had a key injury on our team, gearing up for a playoff game. One of our starting safeties, Troy Polamalu, goes down with an injury, and they were plugging in his backup. And, we're in this team meeting and everyone's kind of worried, like, man, we've got this Hall of Fame player out with injury, how are we going to fill this gap? And Coach Tomlin said, hey, the standard is the standard. The person that we plug into his place, we expect to perform at that same standard, at that same high level, and that doesn't change. And that applies to everything throughout our organization. So for me, I think the standard that you set for yourself as a professional athlete, as a professional hockey player, professional pit crew, like, you're going to do something to a level and to a standard that is really excellent, right? When you're competing, you're trying to do your absolute best. And if you apply that same thinking and mentality to your work as a professional, now you start to do things again at that same level of excellence. And the standard is the standard. It doesn't matter whether I'm on the field and trying to run a route and make sure that my alignment, my depth, my angles, all of that is perfectly precise. Or I'm gearing up for a meeting and getting my presentation together and going to present to, the head of a professional sports league and pitch them a partnership. The standard is the standard, regardless of what environment I'm in. So that's, I think, one of the biggest things that I take away and am able to kind of use today is just knowing that operating and performing at kind of a high level and a level of excellence, it applies regardless of where I'm at or who I'm talking to or what it is that I'm involved in. It goes back to what Mike said, really knowing who you are and trying to bring that to the table, regardless of whether you're going out to catch a pass or you're trying to nail down a deal, in the boardroom.
Awesome answers, guys. I want to kind of crystallize that before we kick it to Christian for another question. I think something Brandon talked about when his answer initially was, it was about playing sports professionally taught him about growth, right? It was always about growth, getting better as a player. That's what life is about. And you guys are demonstrating that here today. I know we don't think of it, but this is a weight room session, right, Mike? Like this is you guys getting in the gym. It's just a different type of gym. And we're learning and growing different types of muscles. We're growing our mind, we're growing our capacity. And continually doing steps like this is going to make you a better professional. It's just in a different arena. So Brandon, I thought that growth mindset for you all, that you can learn from a book, you can learn from reading Mike Metcalf's book, you can learn from a career exploration camp, you can learn from taking someone to coffee, but look at these sessions as a way to grow the same way that you look at your athletic career, and you're going to find you're going to have success. And unfortunately, as Brandon touched about, or fortunately, you're never done growing. So just be okay with that and keep on moving forward. Christian, did you have a question from the chat?
Yep. So speaking to the point of growth, this question to all the panelists: have you guys, at what point in your career did you face adversity, and then how did you overcome that adversity? Like, what mindset did you have to overcome adversity?
Mike, you want to take that?
Yeah, so I just wrote this down, that a lot of people think that the path to success looks like that. Can y'all see that? When actuality, it's actually like this. And that's just the reality. Like, I think, people think that successful people are people that haven't had adversity or haven't had failure. Those are the people that are standing on mountains of adversity or standing on mountains of failure. They just didn't let, Martin didn't let that injury stop him. Brandon didn't let those concussions stop him. He pivoted, and he took what he learned and he evaluated where he was. He was aware of himself. He didn't think that just because he failed that he was a failure, and he kept going. And so I think the main thing is just to have a really, you need to develop a very, very, very close relationship with failure. You will learn so much from failing in life. Your failures don't have to be the end. They're just a speed bump along the way. And so we say to our pit crews all the time, fail quickly. Like we've got 12 seconds to change 4 tires and put 18 gallons of gas in a race car. Failure is going to happen. We're operating on the edge of what's humanly possible. And so if you miss a couple lug nuts, hit the next few. If you miss the index getting the tire on, make the next one. If you have a really bad pit stop, have a good one the next time. If you have a bad race, we don't have time for it, the next race has got to be good. And so, but it's this kind of growth mindset of understanding that adversity is coming. I'm okay with that. It's going to happen, but it can't wipe me out. I've got to keep going. I got to keep moving. I'll pass it along to the experts, Brandon and Martin.
Yeah, I mean, it's hilarious listening to everybody talk. I had specific notes about failure. Get used to failure. It's okay. So yes, I played professional hockey. Well, I was also cut from every team within that professional career. So every year I went to the Rangers training camp. I was cut, and then I was sometimes cut from Hartford to go to Charlotte. I was cut every single professional year I played. And within that career, I had shoulder surgery, almost knee surgery, and a career-ending concussion. Like, injuries aren't failure, but they're the same thing. You still got to get back up and you got to keep moving forward. So if I don't get to say this at some other point of this, it's like Mike said, get used to failure, get comfortable with it. It's completely okay. Everybody does it.
Yeah, and I think failure speaks to where you're at. You're pushing the limits, like Mike talked about. Like, you're trying to do something that hasn't been done before. You're trying to accomplish something that's special. And if you are not pushing on kind of the limits where failure or success, they're just kind of a fine line away from one another, then if you are in that place, you got to expect that sometimes you're going to fall on the failure side of that line, right? And that just means you're pushing yourself. That means you're kind of, it's just like when you work out, kind of Patrick referenced it. If you go into the gym and you do a workout, you go through your whole workout and you don't have a rep that ends in some failure, you're not working hard. You're not pushing yourself. So I think it's, to Brandon's point, like, you have to embrace that as part of the process, part of the journey. Failure is going to come. And if failure comes, that probably means, hey, I'm pushing myself. I'm in the right place. I'm actually doing the right thing. So I love what they said there. Embrace it, kind of understand that it's part of the process. And, I can remember injuries. I think Mike talked about it. Brandon talked about it. It's weird. They often come right when you're like at that, at the edge of success, and, for me, same thing in college. I broke every record we had from a receiver's receiving standpoint, yards, catches, touchdowns. Like, so here I come back the next year thinking, all right, this is the year I'm going to replicate it, go off, leave school early, get drafted. That's what agents are telling me, all this stuff. Fourth game into the season, I tear my ACL. And, and I had to start over. Like Brandon talked about, you're now in that lonely place in a rehab room, like trying to learn how to walk again. And you build yourself back up and do it again. And, you come out and prove that you can still accomplish those goals that you set out to. And I have, other stories like that. We all do. But I love the illustration that someone gave. Oftentimes the people that are the most successful, you see them up on that mountaintop, but they have this mountain of failures underneath them that are kind of lifting them up. That's kind of how that landed on me. But it's definitely a part of the process. I like that.
Yeah, I haven't been to a gym in a while, but I mean, Brandon and Mike and Mark can attest to this. I mean, Brandon, some of your workouts, you tell people to go to failure, right? You do as many reps as you possibly can till you can't do anymore. And everyone knows that's how you build muscle, right? If skinny Christian wants to squat rack, he wants to squat 315 pounds. He doesn't get there by just doing it once. He has to fail at 315 and do reps and come back a week later and get there, right? And I think that's an analogy that all the students can get, right, Brandon? Like, go to failure, seek it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an analogy, right? Yeah, I mean, just there's something about seeing what you can accomplish, whether it's going to failure or just there's something great to know, like, how great could you be? How far can, what I like? Mike said something that really speaks to me. He said, I didn't feel like this body I was given had accomplished what it was to accomplish yet. I wasn't ready to put this body to rest. It was ready to move. So I made it happen. That's not exactly failure, but like, it was just this this drive. It's this theme we just keep circling back around, is to keep moving forward, keep picking yourself up. So yeah, I kind of went all over the place there, but yeah,
good.
I'm really enjoying this right now.
Likewise. So really great conversation. I'm really glad we brought that up because, to your point, failure is something that's inevitable. Everyone forgets. Like Michael Jordan failed 3 times in the playoffs, 4 times, how many? 6 times in the playoffs before he ever won a championship. Everybody's like, oh, he's got 6 rings. Like, well, he lost 6 years before that. And I don't know a lot about hockey, but I know Gretzky didn't win the championship every single year. So everyone deals with failure. Run into it, don't run away from it, and you're going to build growth and build strength. One of the things that I also want to talk about too was you all had a plan A, which was playing professionally, and then you have had probably plan B through Z. How did you figure out what you wanted to do? A lot of our students just say, I don't know what I want to do. How did you guys arrive at, this is what I like doing? And maybe some advice to help students figure that out as well.
I'll kick it off. It's important to have mentors, kind of like what Martin was saying, Brandon as well, reaching out to people that are older than you, because here's the deal. Brandon and Martin will probably still, and you, Pat, Jeff, Sam, we're all still trying to figure it out, right? I'm in my late 30s. It appears that I have a career and a course of action that I can take, that I'm familiar with, a lane that I enjoy and that I'm competent in, but I'm still kind of wrestling with these questions of who am I? None of this stuff ever goes away. And so part of that, like getting used to failure, is also just kind of getting used to the unknown. There's a lot of freedom in moving forward step by step and knowing that I don't have to have all the answers. But I would say for me, one of the main problems that I would get, me and my running back coach at App State used to go at it all the time, because he was a defensive coach that came over to coach running backs, and I was a running back. So I knew different holes and reads and whatnot from a different view than he did. And we used to argue, and I used to get kicked out all the time. And so that was part of why I didn't play. That's another story for another time. That had nothing to do with that tearing the ACL. And then with my first couple pick coaches, I was kind of agitated with some of the, I realized that I have a problem when leadership isn't done well. So then as time would progress, I would kind of gravitate toward leadership roles, not because I thought I was a good leader, but because I wanted to at least try to give everybody under me the best opportunity that they could to succeed. And then now here I am writing a leadership book and running a leadership company. So I always tell young people, like, look at the things that really, really, really piss you off in this world, and you'll probably find, some kind of solution there, or some kind of angle in which you can kind of jump in and activate this thing called passion that we all talk about, right? If something that fires you up, you're gonna be passionate about fixing it or making it better. And so you want to find things that you really like, really move you at a heart level.
I guess I can jump in. I think what is not celebrated enough is playing towards your strengths and kind of identifying that early. The business world right now, I think, is going in a very good way with more celebrating teamwork and co-work and people having a position in their company, and like it's all going in a good way. Well, with that being said, and this came up early, you're going to bring something to your organization, or you're going to have a unique skill set that defines you, that you are great at. I think a lot of times it's great to be well-rounded and to continue growing to make you a more well-rounded player or business person, but it also is good to lead with your strengths. It's good to find out what you're great at. For me, I think I liked competing. I don't know if I liked hockey so much as I loved competing. So when I had this character trait and flaw I could admit to, that I really struggle living in the past, good and bad. So when that doctor told me we're never going to medically clear you to play, I literally walked out of the office, and before I got to the car was thinking, okay, what can I do next? What can I go compete at? You know, so I like to create. I like to push boundaries. So for me, that's why entrepreneurship made sense. You know, I think identifying your strengths and really celebrating them and actually seeing how far you can take them is sometimes a thing that gets lost in trying to become well-rounded sometimes. And neither are right or wrong, but become more well-rounded to just be a better human being, but lead with those strengths. Because I'm looking right now, 317 people are on this call. Everyone on this call has something that is very unique to them, that they are better at than a lot of people, than the majority of the people around them. And to kind of like, if you can somehow isolate this at this young age and know what you're great at and really work to be amazing at it, I think that's something that's often not talked about too.
Yeah, and Brandon, I mean, just to make that real, I mean, that's how you started MADabolic, right? You weren't the best hockey player, but a lot of your teammates were looking at you because you were training and were training different ways, and then you started to help them train. And you said, I know how to do that. There's a business out of it, right?
Yeah. I mean, Jeff could laugh at this because he was the president of the Checkers when I played there, but the Checkers weren't excited about my skating ability. I can tell you that. I brought a certain level of rawness to the game. I made it uncomfortable to play against us.
For the non-hockey fans, can you just explain what that means?
Yeah, I made it uncomfortable to play against our team.
Jeff, what does he mean?
I've seen a lot of pro hockey enforcers and tough guys. I wouldn't call Brandon an enforcer. I just would consider him a very difficult player to play against. If I had to make a list of the guys that I would never, ever fight, Brandon is literally at the top of that list. I've still got black and blues from going to practice sessions where he would just light me up and then fire the puck through my chest. He's a tough player.
So to go back to that, I was well aware that what allowed me to stay relevant on the ice is what I could control in the weight room. So I always wanted to use the weight room as my athletic advantage on the ice. I kind of fell into training people in my off seasons when players said, hey, I want to be on your training program. So I was like, all right, I might as well get this certification thing and start working with professional athletes that pretty much are just following my program. So, I mean, yes, the short answer is I don't want to say it was an easy transition into fitness, but I 100% knew it was a strength that I had, that I was better than most people at that aspect of it. And I wanted to use that because I knew it was a strength of mine.
So yeah, Martin, thanks, Brandon. So Martin, you're off a Super Bowl ring, right? And then you're trying to figure out what you love doing, and you work at Gatorade, so obviously you love Gatorade, you love the brand, but help students understand what you love about your job and maybe how you arrived at that being this position being the right thing for what you actually loved doing, not necessarily loving just where you work.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have to kind of be a little open and transparent and kind of lean into something that Mike said. Like, I haven't always known exactly what I wanted to do. You know, we go all the way back to, you know, an athlete as a kid, right? I would jump from, you know, in the month of January, I wanted to be, you know, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and you know, you roll forward later in the month, I wanted to be King Griffey Jr., and then the next, you know, a few months later, I wanted to be Jerry Rice or you know, Randy Moss. So I haven't always had this like real clear vision of like, when I grow up, this is what I want to be. And but one thing that has been consistent is I knew I wanted to do something and be in a space that was difficult to get to, but enjoyable, and something that, you know, I would really feel fulfillment from. And so that theme has been pretty consistent. You know, when I finished playing in the NFL, I said, all right, you know, I want to open up some doors and create opportunity for myself, but I don't know exactly what that is. So, you know, can I go back to school? Can I find a program that will really push me and sharpen my skills and create kind of more opportunities for me to make some choices further down the road? So that's what led me to go back to school. I went to Michigan and did graduate school at Michigan. And from there, I got introduced to Gatorade. I got recruited out of the business school at Michigan to intern at Gatorade and jumped in there and have since really, you know, a go blue to Cullen there in the chat. But I have kind of since hopped around within marketing and within different roles within marketing at Gatorade. And that's one of the things I love. Getting a chance to do different things and kind of always be challenged in a unique way. So I've worked in sports marketing, managing a lot of our team, league, athlete relationships and contract negotiations, you know, negotiating with whether it's Serena's agent or Usain Bolt's agent or working with those athletes and teams around the world. I've done creative development, you know, TV campaigns and leading the production work on TV and creative digital advertising work. I've spent a couple years doing brand strategy and kind of more traditional, what we'd reference as brand management. And now I lead a totally different team. So it has really been great for me because I love variety and new challenges and kind of moving around and having to learn new skills and apply them. So, you know, to Mike's point, you know, I'm still kind of figuring out what I want to do. And I just know I want it to be challenging. I want it to be exciting and fun. And so I'll just continue to look for those type of opportunities and continue to kind of grow and push myself at each step.
Thanks, Al. Really great answers. I want to kick it to Christian. He's going to do one more question from the chat, and then following that, we're going to do one piece of advice for the high school students. So make sure you prepared for that. I will give you a little bit of a heads up that question's coming down the pipe, and then we're going to get you guys out of here for your day. But once again, thank you. This has really been amazing. Christian?
Gotcha. So, Martin, you alluded to it earlier, how you had to go back to college to finish out your degree. So, going back to your high school self, what is one thing you would have done differently to set yourself up for success today?
Well, that's a great question. Just for a little clarity, I finished up undergrad at Miami, Ohio. I majored in accounting just before going to the NFL. So my kind of motivation to go back was to go back and get a graduate degree and kind of really resharpen my skills and again, kind of push myself to take things to another level and open up some more opportunities for me. But to the question regarding advice to me as a high schooler, I guess this leans into what Patrick referenced, but I think it's just really push yourself to get exposed to a wide range of opportunities. There are so many things out there that you can do in life. I'm sure, I mean, Mike kind of referenced it. Brandon talked about it. Like if you would have asked them in high school, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Or, you know, what do you want to do for a professional career? None of us would have described the thing that we're doing today. And frankly, I didn't even know the type of work that I do today. I didn't know it existed. And so that just speaks to the importance of getting exposure to a wide range of opportunities. When you meet a professional, make sure you understand what it is that they do, what it is that their business produces, or how their business makes money or operates, or what is the goal or mission of their company. The more you do that, the more it kind of expands your mind and you realize all the different pathways that are out there. So I think for me as a high schooler, I would have pushed myself to just explore a little bit more, learn more about what's out there, I think that would have given me even more motivation and kind of excitement for all the opportunities that were out in front of me.
Yeah, Mike, same question. It's basically, like Monday morning quarterback. What do you wish you would have known then that you now know? And putting yourself in your high school.
Yeah, that kind of like what Martin just said. I feel like we're just all ping ponging each other's thoughts between Martin and Brandon, but which is awesome. Hopefully, get to work with you guys again. But what Martin said was, if you are listening, is that the jobs that he went to school for, like they weren't that the jobs that exist now. There was no training or curriculum for them when we were in school, and it'll be no different for you. By the time that you're a mid-level, C-level employee, it'll be for a business that probably hasn't even started yet. It's not even it's maybe an idea on a piece of paper now. When I was in school, there was this piece of paper called Facebook. Now it's $1 billion thing, right? It's like, how would you know that was even an option? And so, like, to Martin's point, I would have tried to maybe just expose myself to more opportunities, more different kind of camps. There's all these little clubs and things in school that I was just like, man, that's for nerds and geeks, and press into that, or at least just go to a meeting and just see what it's about. See if you can learn something. And I would have taken more risk. I was a little bit too worried and concerned about what people thought about me when I was in high school, to be fully honest. It wasn't that I had an image. It wasn't prideful. It was just like, man, I think people think I'm like have my stuff together, and I don't want to do anything that makes it seem like I don't. And so I would pass on things and opportunities to maybe learn or grow or connect or network if I didn't feel like it was comfortable for me. And so I would have just expanded my comfort zones and tried to maybe just, reach out to more people, ask for help. I didn't ask for help. I've always been kind of like, I'm gonna figure it out myself. And they say all the time that today's leaders are tomorrow's CEOs. And so the more that you can lead now, the more responsibility that you can have now, the more perspective that you can have now, it's going to serve you well over time. Especially as young people, you have this thing called grace and youth working for you. Like, young people can make mistakes. If you're in charge and you're Jeff and Pat, there you get fired. But if Christian was in charge of the business program, they were like, hey, he's in his 20s, big deal, So while you're young, take advantage of that, use that as an asset, take risks, take big shots. Too often, it's not that we shoot for the stars. It's not that we shoot up here and we fall a little bit short, is that we shoot too low and actually hit, So I don't know if that tracks, but shoot big, have big dreams, go for them, take risks, get out of your comfort zone.
Christian, we would never fire you. Brandon, take us home, buddy.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Be okay with failure. You are not your sport. You're not your position. You're not your accolades. You're a human being that's going to have a lot of ups and downs in this life, in your sport and then in your career. So I would be a little gentler on myself. I pushed pretty hard, which is fine. I mean, I'm okay with that, but just know that, you aren't your sport. There's a lot of good things that you can do with this life. Use that sport to, use it as the building blocks for the rest of your life.
To become a better person, right? To grow. That's what it's all about. For a very few, they can play whatever sport professionally. You three of you just happen to be three of those individuals. But I think the biggest takeaway is that wasn't the start or the end of who you guys are. And clearly you've moved on to other things and you're making a huge impact to what you do on a daily basis. And I can't thank you enough. You're making a huge impact on our students today. So this was the perfect way to kick off our 2020 career exploration camp. Can't thank you guys enough. We have 314 people that got an amazing experience. And I also do want to make sure I recognize each of individually, but MADabolic and Brandon, thank you for your support of our organization. Martin, thank you again for Gatorade support as well. Because of your guys' involvement, that helps us provide this at no cost to our students. So I can't tell you how much we appreciate that. Once again, thank you to all of our participants. I'm sorry we couldn't answer all of your questions. But I can tell you this isn't the last chance you're going to get to learn from amazing people like this. So I mentioned we've got sessions coming up at 2 p.m. And those are locker room chats. So find the specific path that interests you and make sure you figure out that Zoom link. And that would have come through at your game notes at 8 a.m. this morning. If you have any concerns about that, just go to our website. And then we have our 4 p.m. session later today. And I think, lastly, this is a momentum building experience. Hopefully you guys learned something today and you've taken one small step towards whatever that career is going to look like. Keep on taking steps. Martin, thank you very much. Mike, thank you so much. Brandon, thank you so much. We're going to make sure that everyone gets a link to your book and also to the TED Talks as well. Thank you guys so much. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks all. We'll see you at 2:00.
See you guys. Thank you very much.